It's one thing to invest, to put away money for the future. But what happens when the future becomes the present? How do you live off of that money that you've put away? How do you spend your assets efficiently in retirement? Well, things have changed. We're going to talk about it today. Stick around. Hi, I'm Antonio Cibella with Vision Wealth Management. Thanks for showing up today. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified every time we put up new content. So in December of 2019, things changed in a major way for retirees. Some legislation was passed called the Secure Act. It did a lot of things. Two of the big ones, it pushed RMDs down the road from starting at age 70 and a half. Now they don't start until age 72. So you say, hey, that sounds like a good thing. I don't have to start to draw my money as early as I used to. I've got another year and a half to let it defer. The second thing it did was on the back end, when the money passes to a beneficiary, it limited the amount of time the beneficiary has to spend that money. That's a big change. When you combine that with the likelihood of potentially higher taxes in the future, you really need to look at your portfolio differently and how you're drawing money out and where you're drawing money from in retirement. So that's what we're going to get into. So stretch IRAs used to be when you would spend your money in retirement, you would save that for last. Save your qualified money because it's tax deferred. You don't want to spend that money right now, right? I'll spend the money that's in the bank first. I'll spend my non-qualified assets next, and then I'll get to spending the money that is tax deferred because it's allowed to grow tax deferred. And someday, if I pass it to my beneficiaries, oftentimes your kids, they might be able to stretch that for 20, 30 years after my passing. They just take a little bit out each year that they were required to take if they didn't need the money. Well, that changed. 10-year window now from the date of your passing. Sounds like a long time, but when you walk through that situation, if you say, if I don't need all of my retirement money and I pass some on, might be a sizable amount, my kids are going to be my beneficiaries, they might be in their 40s or 50s at that point, they've got 10 years to spend that. Well, if they're earning a good living, they're doing well for themselves, and now we've got a large retirement balance that they're going to have to take a large chunk on each year, it might push them up into a higher tax bracket. What does that mean? That means more of your money is going to go to taxes than would have otherwise if you put together a plan in the first place. So that changed things drastically. Now, oftentimes, it makes sense to start to draw from those retirement funds earlier in retirement so that you can stretch out the time period that the money's coming out and therefore hopefully limit the amount of taxes that you pay on that balance. You've got to look at what your options are there. You can also start to look at Roth conversions. We got lots of stuff about Roth conversions out there. Always a good consideration to look at if you're particularly tax deferred money heavy, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs. So that's a consideration. You've got to look at what happens to your money after you go, because you might end up giving more of it away to the government than you'd care to if you don't plan for it now as a result of this change. So what do? Well, if you're not retired yet and you're socking money away in to-be taxed accounts, you need to make a plan, right? You got to sit down and look at if that makes sense. What happens if you are retired? Well, imagine this. You got to make a plan. You got to look at where you're drawing income from, what your pool of assets look like, and you might need to shift where you're drawing income. You might want to take more money from the qualified accounts right now, even if you don't need it to live, just to start to reduce the potential future tax burden, whether you convert that into Roth money so it's not taxed again in the future, or you do something else with it. Sometimes it makes sense to start to draw more heavily from those accounts than you may need so that you don't leave a future tax burden to your beneficiaries. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something today. This stuff's always changing, so we like to put out information so that folks can hear about it. If you did like it, make sure that you click the button. Otherwise, thanks for showing up. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you soon.